The primary use of the planer is as a milling machine. We bring our boards from the joiner to the planer to get its second face flat and parallel with the first. But it also can just be used for taking stock down to a certain thickness. Let's look at the setup. As always, we're going to start with reference surfaces. So on the planer, the reference surface is its table. And so that tells us that we need to have one flat face referencing off that table in order for the planer to give us a correct result, which is to make the top parallel and flat. So the way that it works is it has a spinning cylinder of blades in the middle and a feed roller in the front and back. So there's not much for us to do as an operator except push it through the machine. There are only a few setups that you need to do on this machine. Let's take a look. The way the planer works is we adjust the height of the tables by turning this wheel. That brings the table either closer or further away from the blades, and therefore the wood gets skimmed more or less as it's passing underneath those blades. The other thing to know is that the blades are spinning towards us. They're coming over and around on top of your wood and skimming off a little material as they go. Most planers, 1/2 a turn of this wheel adjusts the table by 1/32 of an inch. Clockwise brings it closer to the blade, counterclockwise brings it back down. So making progressive cuts is relatively easy. The hard part about the planer is actually setting it up for the first cut. We don't want to take out too much material, and so we have to set the table to the thickness of the wood that we're starting with. Let's look at how to do that. Initial depth of cut, there are a couple ways you could do it. Number one is if you trust your gauge on your machine, you could just line up your wood there, start raising the table until the top of my wood is on the 0 mark on the gauge. That essentially sets up the tool so that I'm skimming across the top of the wood if I turned it on and put it through. However, these gauges are not necessarily reliable, so a better method of doing this is taking advantage of knowing that the cylinder of blades and the front feed roller are actually coplanar. So that means if we're touching the bottom of the feed roller, we are also going to skim right under the blade. So let's set that up. If I back off the table a bit so I can fit my wood in there, now I'm not touching anything. I'll gradually increase the depth of cut until I start to feel that I'm on the feed roller. Now you know when you're on the feed roller when you can push the wood in, but it doesn't really come out. So you keep increasing it gradually until you're engaged with the feed roller. Okay, so now at this point, I know I'm pretty much at a 0 cut point in the wood. Remember that position. I'm at 12 o'clock. Go back a whole turn so I can get my wood out because I can't turn on the machine with that in there. And then go back to where I was. Now that's my 0 cut. If I turn on the machine and put my wood through, nothing's really going to happen probably. So I'm going to go another 1/2 turn from that point and send my wood through. Now, as with the joiner, if you have a smooth piece of wood, it's going to be hard to tell when it's been planed fully. So make some marks across your board so that you can see when they've been completely planed. Once you're ready to go, we'll turn on the machine here and feed the wood through. Okay, so nothing happened. I'm going to rotate my wheel another 1/2 turn and take another cut. Okay, all my marks are gone, and that means that face is completely flattened and made parallel to the other face. So one thing to take note of here is, unlike the jointer, where we set it and don't change the depth of cut, and we just do multiple passes, on the planer we do multiple passes, but every time we get all of our boards through at one height, the next time we put them through we have to change the height. and we're always going by half a turn or about a 32nd of an inch. Some things not to do on the planer, similar to the jointer, that cutter head does not want to see end grain or cross grain. So passing a board through against the grain or on end are not recommended on this tool. There are also size limitations to the pieces that can go through a planer. You don't want to put very, very short pieces that can't span the 2 feed rollers. You don't want to get too thin. If you go below about 1/8 of an inch, it's likely that your piece of wood is going to get picked up and torn up as it passes under the blade.